Hey everybody, Scott Walters, buckle up, strap in. We got a hard-hitting, pull no punches, no sugarcoating it, rainbows or sunshine. I'm just going to give it to you and give it to you straight. We got a good one to unpackage today. Welcome to the show. I hope everybody's doing great. So here's the deal, my friends. We're going to jump right into this one. Rents are falling all over America as the economy is now shrinking. We've got so many headwinds. I always kind of lean on the U.S. savings rate. It's now at an all-time low. We just have tapped out. We're all out of that stimulus money. And then U.S. debt is at an all-time high. We're leaning on credit cards to bridge the gap. It's a tricky situation, but one of the things that happened early on during the euphoria, during the bubble environment, is a lot of investors poured into the real estate market and started buying everything from multi-unit apartment buildings to single-family homes. You name it, they were just grabbing anything they could get. But unfortunately for these investors, they don't secure 30-year fixed mortgages. They're getting, adjustable rate mortgages that they have to refinance. And so now what we're seeing as the job market's suffering, as the savings rate is now at an all-time low, U.S. debt at an all-time high, the strength and the fitness of the average American now has clearly been compromised. During the euphoria, and that's why I always warn, like, this is a game of musical chairs. The dust is going to settle. There's going to be blowback, and we're going to pay the piper from all this stimulus. And it's playing out right in real time. Now, I think one of the things we have to understand is the amount of stimulus that was poured into the economy, short of a black swan event, some kind of, news event that comes in and just shocks these markets. It's going to be a little bit of a slow bleed, and I think that's what we've seen. But at some point, we're going to hit that tipping point. I mean, we're teetering on the razor's edge right now. So this kind of segues us into what we're really dealing with now. Now, the reason we want to concentrate on real estate is because real estate is the biggest asset class. If we lose it, we will lose everything. It's the backbone of not only the U.S. economy, global economy, and we had more and more foreign investors pour into this U.S. housing market than ever before. So it's going to have massive global ripple effects. And I won't get into too much of a deep dive into the economic component, like the depressionary level of a downturn that we're up against, but that cannot be ruled out. We've had them throughout recorded history, so it's never been if, it's only when. So you have to ask yourself, I have to ask myself, was this artificially induced, market manipulated housing bubble a catalyst that could usher in another recession and a depressionary level of that? And for me, yes, of course it is, but we all are probably going to have a different percentage of likelihood we put on that. I personally, and I'd love to be wrong, I put a high percentage of likelihood that we are in fact going to have that. That's why I've always come here as a real estate guy and just started giving real talk. Now, more importantly, and we're going to talk about this today as well, there's a right and a wrong way to buy real estate. Real estate is the path to wealth. I want you guys all to obtain real estate. It is the path to wealth. I was just talking to a subscriber yesterday, got him signed up. They're working with us now, and we're trying to get him into his first rental property, his first investment property. And my conversation with him, and like countless others, is in his situation, is it all starts with one property. And it's not going to be your house. It's going to typically be other people's houses. He rents. He owns his own business. He's got a good deal on his rents. He's happy with his rental. I said, great. Let's leave you there and go shop for rental properties that will cash flow, things that pencil out. Our cost to carry the property is within the property's rent range. If it's not in your backyard, then we're going to have to look outside your area until we find it. But it all starts with one property, and typically you want something within driving distance of where you live. And that's, like I said, stay tuned to the channel, because I'm going to also teach you, and this is also going to come into today's topic of rents dropping, because I'm going to tell you what's going on with these investors. It's not good, and they're all tied to the bank. So I mean, it's that we could go really deep with this one, but we're going to stick with real estate because I want you guys to be able to understand what the markets are doing and understand how to obtain property and have the right mindset to do that. I always say, don't fall in love with the house, because as soon as you do, they got us. So if we're writing offers, don't fall in love with anything, because you might have to, your offers probably might not stick, and I don't want you to be devastated. Now, if this is your forever home and you have an open checkbook policy, let's go take it off the market. That's a different buyer. But for all intents and purposes, most people didn't get rich with that mindset. They got rich using the mindset we're going to use today. Now, the reality is this, like I was telling the subscriber, we got to start with one property and get you used to owning and operating rental property. Because if we can't just bury you in rentals and expect you to learn it. And you don't want to hire management companies typically, because they're just charging 5-10% of every month's rent just to collect your rents. We can tell the tenant where to send our checks, and if a toilet goes out, call the plumber. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. The other thing is tenant placement. See, and this is where the big institutional buyers that bought apartment buildings are in big trouble. They're not screening, they basically review people on paper, their credit score, their income, based on a couple of years of tax returns, place tenants. And for me, tenant placement is an art form. You want high quality, high caliber tenants. And that's the other thing I've shared with you guys. Just like if you were shopping for a rental, you want to put your best foot forward. You don't want to come in with some hard luck story, some sob story. Landlords like me, we do not want to hear that. If you come to me and like, yeah, my landlord's kicking me out and it was unfair, I'm like, wow, I don't want this headache. But if you come to me like, hey, I've got a tenant overview letter or a rent resume, here's my bullet points, my strengths, I'm like, well, okay, accompanied with your actual application, I'm going to put you at the top of the list and I'm going to be looking at you. But we'll get into more of that later. And I've got, if you can dig back into some of my past videos in terms of if you need a rental, the best way to obtain rentals and get selected for the property. Now today, but what's really most important as a landlord myself for a long time and had plenty of tenant turnover. Tenant turnover is not your friend when it comes to rental property, because that means missing month's rent, getting it ready again, advertising it, showing it, selecting a tenant again, all over. And if you're like me, like I said, I'm going to try to search for high level tenants, because most of my tenants, they stay put for a couple reasons. If you've been watching my show, the same approach when buying and selling property as I do when renting property. As soon as I have a tenant turnover and I have a space available, I find out who my competition is. I see what are like properties renting for, and I just beat them, and I have the best price rental in town. I don't have to go way under them, but I come in a little bit under everybody else, and I get every available renter in town over to this property. I orchestrate an open house like I would with a normal property, and then let people tour through, give them applications, see who turns them back in, and select my tenant. But anytime I have tenant turnover, I'm going to be missing at least 1 month's rent, and 1 month's rent is not good. I don't like to miss month's rent. I'd rather give somebody a little discount and keep them there long term than have tenant turnover. And that's exactly what's happening now. But it gets better or worse depending on how you look at it. So let's say you own a 100-unit apartment building and you rented a bunch of units out during the euphoria 2021, 2022, when rents were doubling, and you placed a bunch of tenants in there for $2,000 a month. Now rents are softening, so people are starting to bail out of your building, and they're getting better deals other places. So now you have empty units. Well, first of all, that's strike one, is you got an empty unit now, tenant turnover. So now you need to get new people, new applicants, but there's less applicants to pull from. Plus you've got existing tenants that are paying $2,000 a month. But if you start reducing rents to $1,700 a month, your people that are paying $2,000 are either going to come to you and say, hey, whoa, wait, you're renting my apartment for less, I'm out. And you're going to start bleeding tenants. And then your whole building goes empty. And that's you cannot survive like that. And that's why the banks now that's why the banks really blew it, because they're lending money in just basically everybody was drunk on stimulus like this would last forever. And we warned about this. It couldn't last. It was all artificial growth, no organic growth. Nothing supported this. It was all euphoria. All euphoria. Very few, and that's why I always say you don't need to own 100 units to get wealthy in real estate. A handful that you can manage yourself. Affordable property will always be in demand. That's why you always want to target affordable homes, not luxury homes. You see, I just showed a Leonardo DiCaprio with his Malibu beachfront mansion trying to rent it out. He's dropping his rent price. He's going to have to off that home he's for sale or for rent. You take your pick, but it's going through price reductions and rent reductions. He's doing anything he can to get that thing rented. And that's exactly what's happening now. So what you're seeing is a lot of these basically apartment buildings, these institutional investors, now offering anything they can than a rent drop, because they know if they drop rents, they're going to start bleeding other tenants. And that's why you see the first month's free, 2 months free. I'm seeing up to 3 months free rent. Well, even if I'm a renter in that building and you're offering, I didn't get 3 months free rent. What are you going to do for me? This is happening. They're bleeding tenants. Now, here's the caveat. This isn't happening all over America, but it's happening in a lot of places already. And because real estate's local, all areas behave differently. Everybody survives on their local economy. Some are going to be more resilient than others, but everybody gets touched in a deep cycle downturn. In 2008, we saw the same exact thing. It started, and it didn't start everywhere. It started in specific areas, and then it started to spread. And as soon as we get unemployment spiking, I mean, it's already going up. I mean, we're breaking all the wrong records. All the data points are there. Credit card debt at an all-time high, and default rates at an all-time high. Car loans defaulting. U.S. savings rate at an all-time low. Mortgages are starting to default. Even the people that locked in the low interest rates because their homes are now upside. I mean, it's just like this perfect storm is right now brewing as we speak. And listen, friends, the bigger question is can these big institutional buyers that bought up all these apartment buildings, a lot of them still trying to build right now, that broke ground during the euphoria and they're about to deliver units into a stalled market. And final thoughts, I come to you as a friend, as a content creator, as a real estate guy that wants to see you not only win in real estate, win in life. Understand the waters you're swimming in now. They're shark-infested institutional buyers. Welcome to the swimming pool. You know, I know how it is. Everybody wants to get bigger and bigger, and greed sweeps these markets, but sometimes less is more. You know what's most important in life? Free time. We all want free time. And you know what? And I love my work and I love real estate, so I don't work a day in my life. And that's the beauty of loving what you do. You never work a day in your life. But the number one thing I want more than money is free time. And if I got to be buried under too many investments, it's not worth it to me. You're not going to get to the end of life and go, I wish I had worked more. You're going to say, I wish I had worked less. My advice, and I'd never suggest anybody do anything that I'm not doing or willing to do myself. If you own rental property, and you can, find out who your competition is and beat them. If you have tenant turnover, you need to find out who your competition is and beat them. Get every available qualified tenant over to your property, turn in an application, and handpick the best tenant. Give them a little break on rent so you avoid tenant turnover. Go after single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, anything small. Stay out of these massive buildings. And the reality is this: these institutional buyers that bought up all these rentals and invested into these apartment buildings are now in massive trouble as rents are now dropping. They're going through the kiss of death, tenant turnover. And that's why I'll be here to blow the lid off it every step of the way, because it's not only what you need, it's in fact what you deserve. If you appreciate the content, I want to humbly ask you, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Social media link in the description of this video if you'd like to contact me there, or simply search up Scott Walters Real Estate on Instagram. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love the next video, and there's an easy subscribe icon for your convenience. If you need help buying or selling real estate here in America, I have the biggest network of top-rated agents in the nation ready to assist you. It'd be our honor and our privilege to do so. Email in the description for you as well. As always, thank you for your time. Please go make it count today. God bless. I'll see you on the next video.